All right, welcome. Today, we are going to do a really deep dive into Surah Al Alaq. This is the chapter of the Qur'an that is widely believed to be the very first divine message revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. I mean, think about that. This is the chapter that kicked off a spiritual and intellectual revolution that changed the world. So in this explainer, we're going to get into it. We're going to unpack its profound layers pretty much verse by verse.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll set the scene and look at the context of the first revelation. Then, we'll deconstruct that famous command, Iqra, or read. After that, we'll dig into the themes of creation and knowledge, then pivot to the psychology of human transgression. And finally, we'll look at the ultimate cure that the surah presents.
Okay, so let's set the stage. To really get this, you have to picture it. We're in the cave of Hira, just outside of Mecca. The Prophet Muhammad is in seclusion, meditating, as he often did. And it's right here, in this moment of quiet contemplation, that the entire Quranic revelation kicks off.
So the surah opens with these incredibly powerful verses. It starts with the divine command, Iqra, which means read. Just that single word, that one command, sets the entire foundation for a faith that is so deeply and fundamentally rooted in seeking knowledge, in being conscious of our Creator, and in really understanding our place in the cosmos.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting from a scholarly perspective. There's a bit of a debate. While pretty much everyone agrees this was the first revelation, the question is, how much of it was revealed right then and there? The most common view, the one you'll hear most often, is that only the first 5 verses came down in that initial world-changing encounter. But, and this is a fascinating point, some scholars argue that the entire chapter was revealed all at once. And if you think about it that way, it presents this perfectly complete narrative right from the get-go, from the command to read, to diagnosing human arrogance, and then giving its ultimate solution.
So now let's get to the absolute heart of the surah, that command, Iqra. It translates to read or recite. And trust me, this is not just some simple instruction. It's the very key that unlocks the whole message. And boom, right away, we run into this profound paradox. I mean, scholars have explored this for centuries. The very first command from God is read, and it's given to a man known by everyone in his community as being unlettered. He couldn't read or write. What does that tell us? It tells us immediately that this command is about something so much bigger than just literacy. It's pointing to a different kind of reading altogether, a receiving and a proclaiming of a divine message that's being etched directly onto his heart.
So the reading that's being commanded here, it's a totally comprehensive act. It's about taking in divine knowledge, truly internalizing it, getting to the bottom of its meaning, and then proclaiming it to the entire world. This is basically the inauguration of a divine education for all of humanity, and it starts with its chosen messenger.
And look at this. The verse immediately puts a condition on this huge act of reading. It's not a neutral, value-free quest for information. It must be done in the name of your Lord. This ties all learning, all science, all knowledge directly to a divine purpose, to an ethical framework. The implication is huge. Any search for knowledge that's disconnected from an awareness of the Creator is, at best, incomplete, and at worst, potentially very dangerous.
Okay, now we're going to explore this really deep connection that the surah makes. It weaves together the act of creation itself, God's ultimate generosity, and the divine gift of knowledge. You'll see how the verses just flow from one idea to the next, building this incredibly powerful case.
So right after saying, He is the Creator, the verse gets specific about our origin. He created humanity from alaq. Now, this one word, alaq, is incredibly dense. It's just packed with meaning, and it works on so many different levels all at once. So on the literal biological level, alaq points to that leech-like clinging clot of blood, the embryonic stage of our development. And that right there is a profound statement of humility. It's a reminder to all of humanity of our incredibly humble, fragile physical beginnings. You know, we all start as just a tiny clinging cell.
But wait, there's a deeper, more philosophical layer here. The root of the word alaq also means attachment and dependency. So you see, the verse isn't just a biology lesson, it's a metaphysical statement. It's defining the entire human condition as one of absolute dependence on our Creator, for our existence, for our food, for every single breath we take. And this idea is the polar opposite of the arrogance we're going to see later in the surah. And check this out. What a brilliant way to show us God's nature. The command is read is repeated, but this time, it's followed up with a specific attribute. Your Lord is Al-Akram, which means the most generous.
The placement here is so deliberate. Why bring up generosity right after talking about our humble origins? The classic commentaries make this crystal clear. The highest, most profound form of divine generosity isn't about giving us gold or silver. No, it's the act of teaching. God's status as Al-Akram, the most generous, is most powerfully expressed through his willingness to elevate his creation, that same being made from a mere alaq, by giving it the incredible gift of knowledge. So how does he teach? The verse specifies the instrument, the pen. This is such a powerful and sacred symbol, and it's introduced right at the dawn of the revelation. You know, the pen here isn't just a physical tool for writing. It's a symbol for the entire engine of civilization and learning. It stands for scripture, for science, for history, for law, for poetry, all of it. It's the mechanism that lets us preserve knowledge and pass it down through time and across continents, allowing us to build on the wisdom of those who came before. It is the tool that lifts us from an oral culture to a literate one, from a state of ignorance to a state of enlightenment. And this verse, wow, it's just the magnificent peak of this whole theme. It's a declaration that all human knowledge, when you trace it back to its ultimate source, is a gift. It's something that was taught to a species that was once in a state of absolute total ignorance. Everything we know, from the simplest facts to the most complex scientific theories, is a result of this divine act of teaching, whether it's through direct revelation or through the amazing faculties of reason and perception that he gifted us. All right, let's move on, because the surah now makes a dramatic pivot. After building this beautiful foundation, our dependent creation and our elevation through divinely gifted knowledge, the text turns and starts to diagnose the core spiritual disease of the human condition, our response of rebellion. The word that starts this verse is kala. It's a very strong word of negation, like saying, no, wait a minute. It signals a sharp turn. Indeed, man transgresses. The word for transgression here is tulyan, which means to go way beyond your proper limits, to become arrogant, rebellious, even tyrannical. So after laying out all the reasons we should be humble and grateful, the Qur'an just states it plainly. Despite all that, humanity has a powerful, powerful tendency to rebel. And this is classic Quranic methodology. It doesn't just point out a problem, it immediately diagnoses its precise psychological cause. The very next verse tells us exactly why we fall into this state of tughyan. And here it is, the core diagnosis. The transgression doesn't start with an action. It starts with a perception, a state of mind. It happens when he sees himself as self-sufficient. The word for this is istighna. It's that feeling of being totally free from need, of being independent, of basically being the master of your own universe. So, in essence, istighna is an internal delusion. It's a psychological state where we completely forget our origin as an alaq, a dependent, clinging creature. And instead, we get fueled by our wealth, our power, our status, or even our knowledge, and we start to see ourselves as completely autonomous. It's basically a declaration of independence from our Creator. This slide lays out the chain of events perfectly. So step 1, God gives us a gift. It could be knowledge, power, or wealth. But then in step 2, if we forget the giver, we start to feel self-sufficient. We fall into that state of istighna, and that delusion almost inevitably leads to step 3, rebellion and transgression, or tulyan. It just goes to show how God's greatest gifts, when they're misunderstood, can become the very fuel for our rebellion against him. But, and this is crucial, the surah does not leave us with this bleak diagnosis of the human condition. It doesn't just point out the disease, it immediately provides the definitive, powerful, and all-encompassing cure. Here it is, the cure. This single, powerful statement is presented as the direct antidote to the poison of self-sufficiency. The verse reminds the arrogant, self-sufficient human being of one inescapable reality. Indeed, to your Lord is the return. This journey doesn't end here. There's a final destination. So how does this actually work? Well, the awareness of arruju, the ultimate return to God for judgment, absolutely shatters the illusion of istighna. Think about it. If you know that you have to go back to the source of all power and be held accountable for every single thing you did, that fantasy of being a completely independent, autonomous being just evaporates. It forces humility back into the picture and corrects that flawed human perspective. This is the core principle right here. A false sense of absolute autonomy simply cannot exist at the same time as the certain knowledge of ultimate accountability. When a person truly, deeply internalizes that they are answerable to a higher power for everything they've been given and everything they've done, The root cause of transgression is cured. Humility comes back, and that relationship with the Creator is set right again.
And so this is where we end, with this central tension presented in Surah Al Alaq. The very first revelation is this amazing celebration of knowledge, of reading, of the pen. But it has built right into it a stark warning that this very same knowledge, this gift that lifts us up from being a clinging clot, can become the tool of our own spiritual downfall if it leads us to arrogance. It's a timeless reminder that the path of knowledge, for it to be true, must always, always be walked with a profound sense of humility, gratitude, and a constant awareness of our ultimate return to the source of all knowledge.